Hey, team, we've got a great show for you today talking about social selling and getting very specific about LinkedIn. And today's guest is just a great guy, Adam Gray. And Adam is the co founder and the head of intellectual property at DLA Ignite. He's also the author of two great books. One's called Brilliant Social Media: How to Start, Refine, and Improve Your Social Media Business Strategy. And the second is called Smarketing. And he wrote that with his pal, Tim Hughes. And you'll remember Tim because Tim's been on the podcast talking about his book, Social Selling. So Adam and Tim both work with DLA Ignite. We've seen them in action, gang. We brought them into a couple of our clients. They've got great strategies for how to properly leverage LinkedIn, thinking about really three things. What should your profile look like? How do you actually build out your network professionally? Not spammy the way many people do it, but professionally. And then how do you create and then engage content? So how to create your own content, what should you be doing? And then how do you engage the content with others? What a great conversation with Adam today. He's one of those calm, confident people. He speaks quietly. He's not a big shouter like me. He speaks quietly, which really causes you to lean in and listen more. Incredibly interesting professional background. He's a very interesting guy today with his hobbies and what he collects. We're both fans of music. He was a super high-end violinist at one point in time. I'm a super low-end drummer. So we had a lot in common when we chatted today. And I think what you're going to pull away is some really great strategies for leveraging LinkedIn to stand out, which is what we're trying to do. And it's pretty tough when there's a billion people on LinkedIn. So someone's looking for a sales trainer. There's literally thousands of sales trainers. So what do you do to stand out? So let's have that conversation today with Adam. I really enjoy my conversation with Adam. I've had a couple of conversations with him. He's a great guy. You're going to enjoy it too. And when you do, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast. And thanks for doing so. That's how we get great guests like Adam Gray. Here he is. Hello, Adam.
How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I can't. Well, there's no point in complaining, is there? No one listens.
I would listen. That's what this is about. More than anything, this podcast is just about me counseling you.
Excellent.
So I'll listen in any way, shape, or form. You just lay it out there, my friend.
No, I'm all good, thank you. I'm all good. I feel very, very fortunate that every morning I wake up and I just think how lucky I am to have the life that I have. And actually, all things considered, that's pretty good, isn't it?
What a great way, by the way, when we kick in and jump into the podcast. You give off that vibe, by the way.
Oh, do I? I must try harder then.
Yeah, you've got this sort of calm confidence and almost a contentness. It's very engaging, and obviously, we'll get into the podcast, but you definitely give off that vibe.
Oh, thank you.
I'm a huge one on gratitude. I do the same thing. I have a gratitude journal. I jot things down.
I try to do that, but I'm not very disciplined about writing things down and making affirmations and doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I do invest a huge amount of time counseling other people just to try to, so a lot of what we do is coaching people. And a lot of the coaching is, it's part of it showing people what they need to do and showing them how they need to do it, and showing them why they need to do it. But part of it is, okay, Mark, what's stopping you from doing this? Because you want to do it, and and getting underneath that surface and helping people to realize how lucky they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big thing, isn't it? To have been born at this moment in history when we have all of these privileges available to us, and in the places that we're born, God, you could be growing up in Gaza or something, in which case, you've no idea what it's like to be under pressure, none at all. So you're not going to go to a President's Club this year. Big deal.
Yeah. It's so interesting, by the way. I have this conversation a lot of time with my beautiful wife, Donna, and every once in a while, I'll just make this comment that, we won the DNA lottery.
Absolutely.
Like you wake up at some point in time and just realize where you are and what's going on. I think and how privileged we really are. But I do think in this society, it's very easy to lose sight of that. Like it's a bit of the old statement that, comparison is the thief of joy. And in many ways, social media is just a global way of comparing yourself against everybody else. And so it's a pretty easy way to end up feeling bad fairly quickly
It
if
is.
you let it.
So, have you ever caught up on any of the? There's a guy called Stephen Bartlett.
No.
So he does a podcast called The Diary of a CEO, and he has some. He's one of those people that I'm still on the jury's out about whether or not I find him incredibly insightful or incredibly annoying, and I
Okay.
haven't made up my mind yet. But he has a raft of truly outstanding guests, one of whom he had on was Jimmy Carr, who is a British comedian
I
who's
know
very,
Jimmy Carr. Yeah, my
yeah.
parents are British, right? So
Oh,
I've
okay,
a
cool.
little bit of that.
Yeah. And Jimmy Carr said, at the moment we suffer from what's the word? Dysmorphia? Dysmorphia.
Okay. I think
Anyway,
it is.
life dysmorphia. He said, some people gender dysmorphia or whatever, where they're not in the place that they think maybe they are. And he said, in the developed world, we suffer from life dysmorphia. He said, to put this in context, 50 years ago, people didn't have hot showers.
Hmm.
So think how lucky we are to live as we live. And it's an incredible, he's an incredibly insightful, very clever guy, as you know, but incredibly insightful with some of these comments he makes that often kind of pull you up short. What have I got to moan about?
You know what, Adam? I'm completely aligned on this. And, for everybody listening, by the way, I'll also admit that I'll have those periods of being in the gap. I have a friend named Dan Sullivan who runs something called Strategic Coach, which is a great coaching program for entrepreneurs. But more than almost anybody I've come across, he's got these sort of mindset, tools where he gets you in your best thinking. Really, it's
Mm,
not a how-to program, it's a strategic program of helping pull the best thinking out of you.
yeah.
And one of the ones I think that is just so interesting is he's got one called The Gap and the Gain. And again, strategic coach Dan Sullivan, but he says all of us have this vision of the future of this place we want to be, this goal, this objective, and then there's where we are today. And just by default, if you're kind of in sales or a growth oriented entrepreneur, where you want to be is always different from where you are today. You want to be somewhere in the future. And most people focus on the gap between where they are today and where they want to be in the future. But just by nature, if you're ambitious, they're never going to align because as soon as you start to make progress, you keep pushing that goal out further. Hey, I
Yeah.
want to make 100K. I want to make 250. I want to make 500. I want to make seven figures. So no matter what you achieve, you keep pushing it out just by nature of having these amazing goals and objectives. So that's this gap he speaks to. The gain is thinking about how far you've come.
Mm,
And it doesn't change where you are in life. It just changes how you feel about it and perceive it. And it's incredibly powerful. And it's very funny, Adam. I'll just share, I almost I almost defaulted to this as a survival mechanism when I first started in the funnel, 10 or 11 years ago, because I'd come from a large corporate, CRO job, living a bit of the life, which was pretty good, and traveling first class in the hotels and all that kind of great stuff. And then, literally in a 6 or 8 month period of time, I start this company and, there's no revenue coming in except what you go and create every day. So when you're starting every morning, it was really a little bit of saying, hey, let's just take a pause and think about the great things that have happened here and why I'm so happy to be running this business and why I chose to run this business. And it was almost this kind of default gratitude journal as really a means of survival and keeping myself in the right mindset before I even knew what those things were.
but I think that's incredibly powerful. But I think that the problem is that, and you're right about social media being very guilty of this. What you do is you see some 22-year-old guy who's got a huge yacht and a fleet of Lamborghinis,
Yes.
and you look at yourself and you go, I'm a failure because I haven't got those things.
Yeah.
And that's there's I think the way to look at this stuff is that there's a finite amount of you to go around, and you cannot be good at everything. Now I was less fortunate. Life has given me a load of different things that I've done, and in the early days I used to sell hi-fi to people, and
Oh, okay. You're selling in an audio store.
yeah, and that was really interesting. So I was working in a relatively high-end audio store, and one of the people that came in was quite a successful businessman, and he said to myself and one of the other guys in there, who we had dealt with him, he said, "You guys, why don't we go and set up our own store?" So he was really passionate about this. So he became
Okay.
an angel investor, and myself and this other guy, we started our own hi-fi store, which was directly opposite Harrods in Knightsbridge.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, we went from working in Uxbridge, which is a little provincial town on the M25, to working in the highest retail space in the world outside of an airport.
Okay.
So what we ended up doing was engaging with people that were, and this is like 30 years ago now, multi millionaires. One of our clients was I guess I can say his name, the Sultan of Brunei, who was at the time the richest man in the world.
He
And
came into your audio store?
he didn't, but his assistant did.
Okay.
And we went around to a number of his houses to install systems. So we
Wow.
got to visit all of these different houses. No, and whilst I never got to meet him as a person, I got to I got to go to the wedding of his nephew, which was held at the Dorchester Hotel, because we
Oh,
got
oh,
pally with the guy that was his aide in the UK, and got to meet loads and loads of really, really rich people. And to a man, almost every one of them was miserable. Rich, huge houses, limitless cash reserves, miserable.
yeah.
Part of it was because they didn't ever do this, stopping and saying, I've got all of this stuff, all of this, whether or not that's money or that's physical things, possessions, or whether or not that's achievements. I've got all of
Yeah.
this stuff that I've done and I've worked really hard to achieve, and I'm really proud of myself. I can stop and take stock and enjoy this, but they can't. They're so driven that often, like you said, you want 100, then you want 250, then you want 7 figures, then you want seven figures, then you want it, and there's always the next mountain to climb. And I get that that's part of being entrepreneurial, and I get that that's part of being driven. But think about the saying, I'm here for a good time, not a long time. We're here for a blink of an eye, aren't we? And
Yeah.
you've got to grasp every moment. And what we all know is that if we've been fortunate enough to travel, you go to very rural places, in the Mediterranean or whatever, and you meet people that have got nothing, and yet they're incredibly generous with the time and the few things that they do have with you.
Yeah.
And there's a degree of contentedness, and I liken this to, um, you know, I'm a carpenter. I work with wood. My father was a carpenter. His father was a carpenter, and I do it for the joy of creating and working with
Yes.
materials, and the sense of achievement that I get of constantly being on this lifelong learning. And nowadays, it's like people don't want to earn their fame. I want to be famous. Well,
Hmm.
what do you want to be famous for? I just want to be famous. I want to be an influencer. And
Yeah.
actually, that's putting the cart before the horse, isn't it? You need to say, here's what I want to do, and I want to get joy from doing this, because there'll always be room for improvement, whether or not you're trading on the stock market, making $1 million a day, or whether or not you're building wooden boxes. There's always a chance to make it better, and finding the joy in those simple things is incredibly pleasurable, and should be.
Well, it's so well said, Adam. And one of the things I think, one of the reasons we actually run in the funnel is we're on this mission, and sometimes people roll their eyes, but I'm highly educated, and nowhere along my journey did anyone teach me anything academically about B2B sales. So,
Yeah.
part of my journey is saying, hey, listen, I want to elevate this to the profession it really is. That's what we
Mm.
do it in the funnel. But the why is I know that when we do this, we're actually going to improve the lives of professional salespeople because so many of them are not happy. As you know, they fell into a job. It was an easy job maybe to get, but they feel like they're trying to execute something that they have no control over. They don't really know what they're doing. You can only get enough courage to trigger a conversation with someone when you don't know what you're doing for so long before you have to put a veneer up and you're sort of scripting and pitching. So I absolutely believe that there's this idea of I believe in drive and ambition, and I still have a lot of those things, and I have hopes and dreams and goals that drive me. But I think that the difference now with a little bit of maturity, maybe as much maturity as I can ever claim to have, is I do want to take those pauses every day and go, boy, I'm really happy about today. Like I'm so pleased. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do things that scare me, because I still do things where I jump outside my comfort zone. Doesn't mean I'm not going to have the odd, salesman's night's sleep, which is waking up in the middle of the night and, being concerned about running the business and all those kinds of things. I either call them a professional sales sleep or an entrepreneur's sleep. So those things are all going to happen. But while I'm going through the journey, I just want to enjoy those things that are most important because, as you say, we're far luckier than I ever dreamed we would be.
Mm.
So, and one of the things I'm so lucky about is I love what I do. Now, it doesn't mean it's easy, and it doesn't
Oh,
mean that there aren't some parts of it, but something like this is actually part of my job to get a chat with a cool guy like you, learn from what you and your teammate Tim Hughes have done with the LA at Night and social selling. It's just super fun for me. Like I get a dopamine hit from learning. So it's really this idea. I think it's a really good message for everybody listening today. This idea of gratitude or being happy. There's a guy named Anthony Iannarino who's been on the show multiple times. He's a very nice fellow. He's got a very similar demeanor to yours, very calm and almost zen-like. But in his recent book called The Negativity Fast, he does speak to the power of gratitude with some
mm.
research, and it's just amazing what gratitude does for it. Like physical benefits, like shocking physical benefits if you actually keep yourself in this kind of mindset. And I do think you can kind of control it. I'm going to ask about your journey from this
Mm.
fantastic audio store, to how we're talking about social selling today, and maybe particularly LinkedIn. But every time I have a call with you, I love the guitars behind you. Tell me about
Yes.
your musical career and your passion for music.
Well, I was going to be a violinist. So I auditioned for all of the conservatoires in London and I got accepted into a couple and I selected the one that I was going to go to. Uh, and that was my career. I was going to be a violinist.
Wow.
And during uh, during my course, I developed, as many violin players do, like a lump on my neck from constantly having it on the chin rest of the violin. Um,
Okay.
and I went and it became infected, and I went and had it dealt with in hospital, and then it came back and it had to be dealt with again, and which meant I took about like 3 months out. And during that 3 months, I thought, frankly, you're crap. You need to. So, and I think this is a challenge for everybody that is a high achiever at something.
Hmm.
You're in an environment in which you are the big fish. So for a period of my life, I was the best violinist that I knew.
Okay.
Therefore, I must be pretty good at this.
Hmm.
Then you move up a league. So I go to music college and I'm the worst violinist that I know, which
Hmm.
is a bit of a shock. And this is a repeating pattern that we all face. You go into an
You go
environment.
to the next level for sure.
Yeah, and you're surrounded.
Imposter syndrome. It's all over the
Yeah,
place.
absolutely. But this was not imposter syndrome because this was actually not me believing that I was not as good as these people. This was me really not being as good as these people.
Hmm.
So during this like 6 months out or whatever that it was that I had, I thought, actually, you need to move on. This is not the right industry for you. So I ended up working in a store, and I met one of the guys that worked in this audio store, and he said, "You're wasted here. Why don't you come work for me?" So, well, okay. And I've always been very lucky that during my life things have fallen out of the sky into my lap. So
Hmm.
that's one of those occasions. So I went and worked there, and they loved the fact that I was somebody that understood music,
Yeah.
because when you're demonstrating stuff to people, and having an input and an opinion on stuff is often quite valuable.
Yeah.
And that was my first real taste of selling. So previously in the store, it was like a wine merchant, and previously I'd learned about customer service, but not about selling. So in this store, and it's amazing, along your journey, you pick up these breadcrumbs and you think that was incredibly useful to me, so I'm going to share that with other people now.
Yes. Yes.
So whilst I was in this store, we we were all given the opportunity to go on a sales training course. So that's
Okay.
that. So I went on the sales training course, and
Do you remember what it was, by the way?
no, it was specific for the audio industry.
Got
This
it. Okay.
and the trainer, he said something, and you get to this point, and they're giving you the buying signals or whatever it was he described them as. And he said, then you just ask for the deal. And I said to him, hand up. How do you ask for the deal? And he said, well, you just ask them. I said, no, 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 you're missing the point. What words do you say?
Yes.
And he said, okay, I say to people, should we just go outside and sort out the paperwork? And I thought, that'll do nicely. That's what I'm
Got
going
it.
to. So I took that little gem, and I went back to the audio store, and I became the most successful retail hi-fi salesman in the UK by just saying this to everyone when they looked like they were ready to buy it. Say, so you're happy with this, right? Let's go outside and sort out the paperwork. And 90
Wow.
and people would say, okay. And I realized at that point, the penny dropped, that everybody understands the concept, and I went on from some point down the road to be in marketing. I ran an agency, and people understand a concept. You understand that you're friendly but professional.
Yes.
Everybody can grasp that. Okay, you write me a friendly but professional email. Okay,
Right.
that's really
How
different.
do you do it? So we
Yeah,
know what to do, but we don't know how to specifically
exactly.
do it.
And part of the job, if you want people to take action and behave differently, part of the job is about building those bridges. So, this is about giving them examples, illustrations of what this looks like, so they can project what they do into that.
Yes.
And in the case of write me a professional but friendly email, you might provide someone with a lexicon of words to use. We use help, we don't use assist. We use love, we don't use like. We use care, we don't use passionate, or whatever those words are. So I can then look at the two and I can go, right, I'm slipping into this area when I'm writing stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that's really interesting about these is that at all points in our lives, we're just beginning, or we're more experienced, and there are people that have come to the same roadblocks that we're coming to, and
Yes.
asking them, so Mark, how did you learn to close a sale? And it might be that you say, well, it was easy for me because I did blah, blah, blah. And I go, okay, I can't relate to that. But it could be that you're exactly the same person that I am. And it
Yes.
could be that I say to you, how did you overcome this? And you say, well, what I did was this. And then for me, the light bulb comes on and I go, right. So that's what I need to do. And, when we work with clients, so much of this is about showing them, what's the thing that I do. I like to try to be an exemplar of best practice in the things that I'm teaching you to do. So, there's no credibility in standing there saying, yeah, what you need to do is this, if I'm not doing it.
If you can't do, yeah, if you don't do it,
Yeah,
right.
but like the fat fitness coach in the gym, actually, if you can't eat healthily and get yourself in shape, how are you going to help me to do it? So
Absolutely.
we need to model the behavior. So often, a starting point for you on your journey is for me to say to you, okay, this is what I say, this is what I do, this is how I use these tools. Now, always, if you give me a script and I use the script, that's better than starting with a clean sheet of paper, but it's not as good as if I take your script and then I refine your script. So it sounds like it's me saying it rather than sounds
Yes.
like you saying it. But often people need a leg up, don't they? They need a bit of help to get them from where they are to where they want to be. So oftentimes, we spend time with organizations helping them understand what are the things that they can say. So a great example of that is part of what you need to do if you want to be successful on social is to connect to lots of people in your target areas. And we had a client some couple of years ago now, 4 years ago, and they were sending lots of connection requests to a particular target account of theirs, and they're getting very low acceptance rate, despite the fact they had a really good profile and they were lovely. They were really attractive, really engaging, really switched on, really smart person, but nobody was responding.
Mm-hmm.
And their connection request basically said, "Hi, Mark, I'm your account manager at such and such. I'd
Right.
like to connect to more people in your company because and I said to this person, the problem is what they're reading is, "Hi, Mark,
I want
I'm
to sell you something.
I'm compensated on selling you things. Can I connect to you so I can sell you some things?"
Yeah.
And but that's not what I said. No, it isn't what you said, but it is what they heard.
Yes.
So change that up into something which is much less aggressive. And I think that so often, you know, one of my mantras is you have to assume that everybody except you in the world is stupid. Now, it doesn't mean these people are idiots, but it does mean that they haven't got the same frame of reference that you have. So you can't
Yes.
assume that this person understands this. And if you go, aha, well, this is what it is, well, you can make that jump, but they can't necessarily make that jump. So you have to handhold through the process. And part of that is in all of these tiny little micro changes that we need to make. So when I say, I'd like to connect to you, because it's happened so many times in the past, you're going to get a list of my products and services and prices as soon as you say yes. So you'll say no. Unless I say, I'm not going to follow this up immediately by sending you one of those, in which case you might go, oh, okay. And so much of this is about, I think, for everybody, understanding the difference between what should happen in an interaction and what actually happens in an interaction. Because often the two are not the same thing. If I say this is what you should do. But if I say this, you don't do that. You do something else. Okay, why is that?
So let's talk about that for a second. I love this, and I'd like to get to this example of what that reach out should be. But one of the things I've seen you and DLA Ignite in action. I'm a big fan of your partner Timothy Hughes's book, Social Selling: Techniques to Influence Buyers and Change Makers. Huge fan of this, by the way, team. And by the way, we've had Tim on the show. So in the show notes, we'll probably do a link to the episode with Tim. But one of the things I think you guys do so well is you have this different paradigm of what social media is. I've heard you say before, Adam, social media is about being social. Like, how would we behave if we were actually at a cocktail party talking to somebody? And as soon as we were introduced to them, we're not going to pull a price list out of our pocket and give it to them for whatever it is we do. We're just going to be, tell us a little bit how we should first start to think. Maybe we just focus in on LinkedIn for today, because I think people will extract amazing insights. But how should we be thinking about that platform? Because to me, today with LinkedIn, there's a lot of people that look exactly the same on LinkedIn. Different picture, but pretty similar.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a massive number of pitfalls that people can fall into. So I know you and like you and trust you. Therefore, when you say something, I'm likely to believe what you say because I know that you like me and therefore you've got my best interests at heart.
Yes.
Problem is that because I'm saying something which is true and helpful to you, if you don't know me, there's no reason for you to believe that. So we've all got examples of this. You get outreach from someone that's an independent financial advisor, and they say, "Hi, Mark. We're all middle-aged now. I wondered if you'd like to get some insights into what you can do. If you can give me some information about your investments, how I can make those work harder for you." To which your response is, "No, I'm not going to tell you anything personal to me because I've no idea who the hell you are."
Right.
So the first thing is we have to build that trust. And the first step on building trust is standing out from everyone else. You've got 5,000 followers on LinkedIn. A of whom you know 200, and the rest of them are just people that, oh, yeah, I vaguely know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly.
that means they're not front of mind. So given that you're a great metaphor for everybody on LinkedIn, whether they've got 500 or 50,000 followers, the fact is that you know a tiny little sliver of those people.
Yes.
So how do I make myself one of the people that you recognize, that you notice when I'm coming up in your newsfeed? So the first thing is I have to look different. So anybody can simply search on LinkedIn for marketing director, and they'll see
Yes.
there's 27 million responses. Okay, so there's 27 million people that identify as marketing director. Therefore, the fact that you are marketing director at a company I've possibly never heard of is not memorable or compelling.
Right.
The fact that you're a tall, handsome guy that plays the drums, actually, that's likely to arrest me when I'm scrolling through a list of marketing directors, and it goes marketing director at there, marketing director at there, marketing director at there, tall, handsome guy that plays the drums, marketing director at there. Okay, he's different. So that first standout that we have, how we first present ourselves, needs to encourage people to read on. So a good example of this is how a newspaper, a well-constructed newspaper works. It has an arresting headline. The headline
Hmm.
says, "Tall guy plays drums." And people go, "Oh, that's interesting." And then underneath it says, "Mark Cox, renowned sales expert and blah, 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 plays drums in a band at the weekends." I go, "Oh, okay." And then I read on and it says, "Yesterday, Mark was playing at this particular gig and doing the following things." Okay, so it sucked me in from that top level to a middle level to a more granular level. And we need to construct how we go to market in a similar kind of way. Because I want, if all I remember about you is tall guy that plays the drums, that's better than remembering nothing about you. And it's very easy for me to absorb that and that stand out. Yeah, so the next level down is that kind of vignette of who you are and why I should care. So
Yes.
and a mistake that lots of people make with their about section on LinkedIn is that they write about what they do. Well, there's room for that in your job. You're not defined by what you do. So
Hmm.
what you're going to write about in that about section? What are you going to say? Like a good autobiography that turns into a page turner, and I want to learn more about you. So you need to talk about what your dreams are, how you ended up here. You know, if you won the lottery tomorrow, what would you be doing? All of those kind of things. So I get an insight into who you are because, like you said about the cocktail party, I go to the cocktail party. I don't care that you're a sales coach and you've developed a methodology. Not yet. What I care about is the fact that A, you're an interesting chap, you play the drums, what sort of music do you like? And we have that kind of conversation.
Yes.
But also recognizing that to build a relationship, there needs to be a degree of dialogue. So, you know, I can't remember who it was that said this, but they said, think back to your last first date. And if it went well, and if it was the last one, it probably did because you haven't been out on one since. If it went well, it's probably because the person asked questions rather than just spoke.
Of course.
You know, there's that old story about the arrogant man who's talking to this girl that he's gone out for dinner with, and he's talking to her. Oh well, I've been here and I've done this and I run this company and I've got this car and I've got a boat here and he keeps on and on. Anyway, that's enough about me. Let's talk about you. What do you think of me?
Exactly right.
And it's all about him. And actually, when you move from here's my profile to having an interaction with someone, there's nothing more attractive than demonstrating that you're listening and hearing what's being said.
Yeah.
Great post, Mark. Thank you for that. And when, in exactly the same way as when you get on a call with somebody, yes, you're desperate to sell them your stuff. But I think that in the wider context of selling to people, the problem is that if I present my product and service to you, and if I try to close you and you're not ready to buy, you will never take a call from me again, ever, because
Yes.
I tried to close you. Whereas if we have a chat and I position what I do in such a way that you ask me, that's really interesting. We have no need for that at the moment. That's fine. You know, you don't need, I wasn't expecting you to buy it, it's just we're having an exchange of ideas. The nice thing about that is because I've asked lots of questions and you've told me about your dreams and your company and your challenges and what you do at the weekend and all this kind of stuff. If I say to you, let's touch base in 6 months, see how things are, it'd be great to catch up again, you're likely to say yes. And in
Yes.
6 months, who knows? Maybe you will be ready to buy then. And I think I think the concept of qualifying out, particularly today, is a very, very dangerous thing. I think we should not qualify in or out. We should qualify now or later. Because if I've got the
Yeah.
right product and you're the right kind of target for me, it's a good fit. Now, why are you not going to buy? Because you've got no money, because you're under contract to someone else, because you're not in the procurement process for that, because you're busy procuring other things. That's not out. That's just not quite now.
Not now.
And the beauty of the social thing is that it enables me to stay in touch and stay front of mind, not by saying, because, again, here's our product. These are our 3 USPs. I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that again tomorrow. I'll tell you that the day after tomorrow. I'll tell you it the day after that. I'll tell you, there comes a point when you just go block because you know what I'm going to say.
Of course you do. And it's so relevant. By the way, I've lived this on a couple of iterations over the last 10 years with LinkedIn. And the reason I'm so excited to have you back, Adam, or to have DLA Ignite back, is because I absolutely believe everything you're saying. I mean, once a week, twice a week, I get a financial planner reaching out, and as soon as they connect, they go, are you happy with your investments and how they're doing? If they followed up and just said, hey, Mark, it looks like you're doing kind of cool things over it in the funnel. By the way, I love that post you did about supporting the Michael Garron Hospital. My daughter was born at the Michael Garron Hospital. They could say, hey,
Yeah.
I'd love to have a chat over coffee in person or via Zoom at some point, learn more about you. It looks like we're in the same neighborhood. I might be open to that.
Mm.
Because I like meeting interesting people. I know the value of networking. I'm looking to
Absolutely.
expand my network. I might look at that and say, well, this guy's done some kind of cool things. Maybe there's some interesting synergies here. But if somebody comes back and just pitches right at me, I just feel like, boy, you're polluting this environment. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I really hope everybody takes away, Adam, and you guys are so good at articulating this. You know what? I think In the Funnel's really unique and different and one of a kind. And I can go through all of these reasons why we're so unique and different and better and all the rest of it. I closed $1 billion deal one time. I don't know that many people have done that, but to the rest of the world, we look like every other sales training company out there. There's nothing we can put on LinkedIn that says we're unique or we're different that anybody really cares about. But
No,
they
and,
might.
and that's the point, isn't it? And I think that people often misinterpret this. I think that in whatever field you're in, for you sales training, for me in creating software solutions, whatever it is, we think the thing that people are buying is that little veneer of brilliance that we offer over and above everybody else, that special button, that special connector, whatever it is that we do.
Yeah.
And actually, most of our clients are not sophisticated in this way. And I remember the story of the furniture retailer where they used to actively demonstrate Scotch guarding as an upsell on their furniture.
Okay. They pour a cup of coffee on it or something.
Yeah. So they'd spray it with Scotch guard and then they'd pour the coffee on and the coffee
Yeah.
and they'd go, look, this is what you need to do. And everybody would buy it.
Yeah.
And then Scotch guarding became like the norm. And every piece of material came with Scotch guarding on it. So they stopped demonstrating it because it wasn't an upsell.
Yeah.
And the sales started to tail off and tail off and tail off. And part of the reason that they did that is because there was none of that interaction anymore. And yes, it's Scotch guarded, but the customer didn't know it was Scotch guarded, even though everyone in the industry knew it was Scotch guarded.
Mm-hmm.
And when they started to demonstrate, this is Scotch guarded, look at this, and pour a coffee on it, people go, oh my God, that's fantastic. I'll definitely get that sofa. And sales went back up again. And I think that the parallel here is that people are buying these very simple things. You think you're unique. We're unique because we offer incredible insights to all the customers entered into the CRM system, as does every CRM vendor.
Mm-hmm.
So why you? Well, the reality is, Mark, why you? Because it's you.
Yeah.
Because you're the guy I know. You're the guy I like. You're the guy I want to do business with. You're the guy that if we're stuck locked in a boardroom for 24 hours to thrash out the minutiae of the deal, it'll be a fun 24 hours rather than a really dull 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the reasons that people buy. They buy in on something they can understand. And I think that this is the point, isn't it? If you are a specialist at your thing, injection molding or software or training or whatever it is, you understand every single faceted element of this particular vertical. And the customer doesn't. So you think that you're selling these unique things and they don't hear what you're saying. But if you give them something they do understand, which is, I like you, I don't mind you making a profit on me because you're a nice guy and we get on well and we share the same love of hockey or cars or fine dining or whatever it is, and we've had a bit of banter and chat around that, you're somebody that I'm happy doing business with. That's the key.
Trust and credibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you have to start somewhere, and the coffee analogy is people aren't buying Scotch guarding. They're buying a comfortable place to sit to make their living room look beautiful, so that when their friends come over, they can all have a good time.
Yeah,
So it's thinking about, forget what we do; it's what we do for them. It's why they
absolutely.
want this. What is it going to get them? It's all about that. But these days, with our stolen focus, steal the name from Johan Hari, the book Stolen Focus. It's hard to get somebody's attention, and I think this is this thing where I think you guys are so great. With your social selling training, where you think of things, you say, well, listen, let's first take a look at our profile. We'll talk about yours in a sec. Let's think about how we actually build connections. You and I have the same number of connections today, so 17,000-ish. And then what do I actually do? With my posts or other people's posts? I think there's some real clever insights there. And I'm with you. I do think people want social interaction. You have a couple of tactics that I actually apply, I'll tell you right now, and they work extremely well. But before I talk about my experience with them, maybe share. So we've talked a little bit about the profile, trying to humanize it in this digital world, humanize it. Your profile says collector of many things. You got these 3 cool model cars on your profile. I'm looking at your home right now. You got 4 guitars, on your wall that look beautiful. Kind of an interesting guy. So obviously you went from violin to guitar.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. So by the way, there's kind of you would not believe, well, you would believe. I cannot believe how many of my clients are musicians or prospects and have been in a band. It's like everybody, 1 in 2 people in the world want to be a rock star and they're in a band. And it's this common, and when I post that I'm sitting behind a drum, mucking around, trying to do my best, but having the time of my life.
People love it, don't they?
The response, I've never had responses like that on anything. And frankly, for those listening, the stuff I post about business is genius. No, joking. But of course, I think it's genius.
But it is. It is.
But boy, I post my lousy drum playing. And
it's not lousy. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Okay. Stuart Copeland, but better dressed. But I think that's the point, isn't it? And I think that from the seller's perspective, we think, everyone else lies, but when I say these words, they're true. And I think the problem is that from the buyer's perspective, everybody has access to the same words. Everybody is passionate and customer focused and top quartile performance and all of this stuff. And we've all got the same lexicon of words. And we try to big ourselves up and we just trip over the things that we say. Because there's always an implicit agenda in what it is that we're saying. Whereas
Mhm.
if I message you saying, "Loved the drum solo yesterday, Mark," and that's it, there's no implicit sales pitch in that.
Yeah.
If one were to be cynical, one could say, well, it means that I've lowered your guard a little bit. So I then follow it up with something. But I liken the kind of the if you want to be successful in this space, it's a bit like dating. You know, I walk into a bar, I see a beautiful girl across the bar. I walk up to her and I say, "May I buy you a drink, please? And will you marry me?"
Right.
And she slaps me
And she runs.
and leaves. Yeah. And so why did that happen? Now, if I'd have said, "May I buy you a drink?" And then when we finish, "May I buy you another drink?" And then, "Do you fancy a bite to eat?" And then, "It's been a lovely evening. Can I see you again next week?" And I caught her. Maybe at some point I'll ask the question and maybe she'll say yes. But it's inappropriate to say that at the beginning. And exactly the same with sales. You have to court somebody. And the beauty of these social networks is LinkedIn, to use your analogy of the cocktail party, there's a billion people at this cocktail party. Every single person from a business context that you would ever want to speak to is there. So actually, you can't sell to all of them today. So what you're not looking to do is to sell to all of them today. What you're looking to do is to identify the low-hanging fruit. Here's the people that I'm looking to talk to. I'll see which ones want to talk to me. I'll see which ones are excited by this. And then those are the people that I focus my effort on, knowing that the ones that have accepted my connection request and have potentially seen my content, I'm going to farm them over a period of time.
Yes.
Maybe you're not ready to buy for 6 months or 6 years. But if I keep posting stuff, you keep seeing me in your newsfeed, hopefully you'll keep consuming some of that content. And then at some point down the road, when you are ready to buy, you might think, ah, yes, it's that Mark Cox guy. He's the guy I need to talk to. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But so often we're trying to hammer a round peg into a round hole. So
Yes.
you haven't got any budget at the moment. Okay, so how can we get budget allocated to this? Well, you
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. Square. Yeah. So how do you do that, Adam, today? Let's give some folks some without giving the secret sauce for everything, but much of this is in
I
what,
can give the secret sauce away because nobody does this until they have a structure around
and
it.
you've done posts on this, by the way. You've been
Uh,
very
uh,
clear about the things we
yeah,
need to do. How do we get so if I know my buyers,
yeah.
which I do, and I know they don't make snap decisions on major training initiatives to train their team, they're not going to, change their mind about January, at the end of November the prior year. So I want to start to kind of introduce a relationship so they may have interest. How do you do that?
Okay, so there's a billion people on LinkedIn. You can't connect all of them. So the first thing you need to do is you need to build a network. And for people that are starting out, let's assume you've got 2,000 people in your network. Um,
Yes.
and for most people, 90% of those people they're connected to are in the wrong place. They're places that they used to work, clients they used to have, industries they used to be in. So very small number of those are people that they're actually wanting to talk to today.
Yes.
So you make a conscious decision about the fact you're going to connect to people that are the people that you want to talk to. I'm
Yes.
trying to sell to company X. I'm connected to two people in company X. That means I'm invisible to company X.
Yes.
I was connected to 200 people in company X, I would be visible to company X. So the first thing we can do and the easiest thing we can do is we can pull that lever. We can say, I'm going to connect to as many people sensibly as I can within that organization. Now, people being people, we have to recognize that I'm trying to talk to the head of procurement. I'm desperate to talk to the head of procurement. The head of procurement is desperate not to talk to me because they don't like me. Okay.
Mm. They don't
Well,
know you.
well, and maybe they do look at me and they go, "There's not somebody that I want to associate with because he likes folk and blues and I like heavy metal. So
Okay. Okay.
it's not someone I'm going to have any sort of relationship with." So what I need to do is I need to get multiple touch points into the organization. Simply targeting that one person is like asking for a marriage proposal on your first date is inappropriate and ineffective.
Hmm.
So what I need to do is I need to surround that person with love. I need to connect to lots of people around that person. So people that are in their direct reports, their managers, people that are at a similar level in other verticals within the organization.
Yes.
So I know that you don't want to talk to me, but John, who sits at the next desk and is your opposite number in a different field within the business, he's become a friend of mine over time. And
Yes.
I'm hoping that ultimately I can ask John to introduce me to Mark in a nice way. And if I've built the relationship properly, John will say yes. So we need to connect into these people. And what we then need to do is we need to, well, parallel with that, we need to make sure that we are engaging with any content that these people share.
So
Because
firstly, though, Adam, how do I get them to connect? So
well,
as you say, I'm going to reach out to somebody who's surrounding this head of procurement.
yeah,
What's your strategy or even a tactic that says, how do I get somebody to connect? Because I think a lot of people today don't accept connection requests.
I think if always a personal note, always, and the personal note needs to be generic enough that I can quickly apply this to lots of people.
Yeah.
You know, looking at your profile, spending 20 minutes reading your profile and creating a beautifully crafted connection request that guarantees 100% acceptance is not effective because that's 3 an hour.
Right. Right.
If, however, I produce a generic friendly connection request that I can then send to everybody, just changing the name, I might be able to send 100 of those now. And if I only get 50% strike rate or success rate,
Still
it
pretty
means
good.
that I've got 50 connections in an hour rather than 3, which is
Yes.
better because there's always an element of numbers in this. So my connection request would say something along the lines of, I found you, however I found you. You were mentioned in this post, or LinkedIn suggested you, or I'm connected to loads of people that you're connected, whatever that is. I looked at your profile. I'm always looking to add good people to my network. Is it okay if we connect? P.S. I promise I'm not going to try and sell you anything.
Wow.
Or I'm not selling or buying at the moment, but who knows what the future may hold. So something which is friendly and will hopefully pique their interest. You know, I've like all of the listeners, I've invested a huge amount of time in creating a really compelling profile. So I want you, if possible, to get you to look at my profile because then,
Yes.
and the beauty of that is that if you think, what a cool guy, you're going to remember me. And if you think, what an idiot, you're still going to remember me. So I've broken through the noise by getting you to look at my profile because it is unique and polarizes people. So once I've got you in my network, I've built a digital bridge between you and me.
Yes.
Now, I think that what people often do is say, well, I can follow Mark and then I can see his content. I'm not interested in seeing your content. I'm interested in you seeing my content. That's where the value for me lies. So I need to connect to you. And if Mark doesn't accept my connection request, John or Dave or Janet or Frederica or whoever will. That's fine. I'm looking for coverage within an account. And then I'm going to share a variety of stuff. You know, we all need to take our whole selves to the platform. So part of that will be my best thinking. If I'm going to give one piece of advice to you today, it would be this. Okay, great. Part of it will be here is something that every organization needs to do. You know, you need to have a strategy around this because you won't get to your destination by chance. Part of it will be I woke up this morning and I was feeling really sleepy. So I thought the first thing I need to do is go for a walk. And here's a photo that I took while I was on the walk. Or I was walking down the street.
Let's hold that. Why would that's I think what people are going to have the most challenge with. And I'm going to be honest, before I started talking to you guys, I would have never posted a picture of me playing drums on LinkedIn ever. It was all corporate, value,
Yeah.
insight. And then we talked and you said, just try it once. And I post this thing and 10,000, impressions, 12,000 impressions. I'm getting comments from people who would not return a call when I'd reached out to them 3 years ago, but they're going, you look fantastic on that drum set.
Absolutely. And I think that there are two reasons why this works. The first of them is that if you do a post that says we've got an open seat sales training program coming up next week, drop me a line if you're interested in being on it, and I like that post, you're going to be straight on the phone trying to sell me something. So I'm not going
Yeah.
to like the post.
Right.
Uh, if you are here, I am playing in my band. I'm really proud of what I've achieved here because this is a difficult piece, and I drop a like on it. There's no back route in there to try to sell me something. That's just you saying I'm putting my wearing my heart on my sleeve. Here's me, and me saying, "Love it, man. That's fantastic." So that's a bit of human interaction, which is really good. I think that with all of these things, what we're looking for is cut through. Yet another company selling whatever product X, service Y to me
Yes.
is not cut through. You walking down the street and saying, "Oh my gosh, look at this, a 1958 Ferrari 250 Testarossa parked on the street. Click. It would have been better in black, but red is still good enough for me." And you post that in your newsfeed. As I scroll past, I go, "What was that?" And I scroll back and I go, "Oh, what a great car. I love that." So it stopped me in my tracks in a way, in exactly the same way it stopped you in your tracks walking down the street. It stopped me in my tracks scrolling through all of this noise.
Yeah. Interesting.
And I think what's really interesting for people that say, no, none of my buyers would behave that way. And I know that because I don't behave that way. I don't engage with personal posts. I would call that out as BS. And the
Hmm.
reason is if you look at even the people that say that and genuinely believe that, when you look at their activity, the stuff they have dropped a like on is Mark is celebrating 11 years at in the funnel. Mark is going away for his wedding anniversary. Mark has just treated himself to a new car. That's the stuff they're liking.
Hmm.
And even if it's just it's Mark's birthday today, drop him a like. So those are the things that they're engaging with. They're not engaging with that business content. Now, don't get me wrong. The joke that I often tell is that if you want the maximum engagement, you share a photo, you share a video of a kitten playing with a ball of wool. If
Right.
you just share videos of kittens, people think you run a pet shop, which is not
Right.
your. So you have to blend these two things together. You have to
Yes.
say, here's the interesting stuff that makes me me. Here's the stuff that makes me an expert. And you dovetail the two. And a 50-50 split is perfect. And well, I only share personal stuff at the weekend. Great. But during the week, are you not going to achieve standout if everyone else is sharing the same dull nonsense? And then you share something, here's me, new shoes, what do you reckon, folks? And people go, yeah, I like them, or no, I don't buy brand shoes myself, or whatever the comment is.
Yeah.
It's about getting that interaction. And the key thing is that for most people, whether or not they're using the telephone or they're using email or they're using LinkedIn messages, what normally happens is I send you a message, you don't even respond.
Yes.
That's what normally happens. If you say, I've just bought a new pair of shoes, I think they're fantastic, and I drop you a message saying, you should have bought the red ones, Mark, you are going to respond to the message. And now I've got you in a conversation.
Yeah.
And all of this is about just making sure that you do not look like the rest of the clones out there behaving a certain way.
Yeah. It's just it's standing out. I like the authenticity,
Mm,
and I like this idea today of humanizing B2B sales, Adam, because marketing automation killed this for a while. This is
and
why
it is.
this is why you can't stay current with the spam filters for email. This is why certain jurisdictions had to start to regulate what we're emailing people because the marketing automation platforms are blasting people, 320 billion emails go back and forth every day. 320 billion.
Yeah,
And it,
it's shocking, but do you know? I think that even bigger than social. So I think that sales scheduling tools, sales tech, are the bane of a salesperson's life.
yeah,
So you take this thing and it says, so Monday you send an email, and Tuesday you send a connection request, and Wednesday you phone them up, and Thursday you email them, and that's a best practice in quotes. And what invariably happens is that people are, as they always do with a process that's as complex as sales, they fix the bit they understand, which is not necessarily the bit that's broken. So with the sales tech, it says, At this point, you need to send, this is your third email to someone. So you need to say something along the lines of, I'm just circling back to bump this to the top of your inbox, checking that you read my email. So you need to write something like that. And you, being pressed for time, don't write something like that. You say, that'll do, and you send that. And that's a set script within product X. We won't
Yes.
know. So it's a set script within product X. And you
Everybody
know
gets those today, bumping this to the top.
everybody
of the
gets
box.
exactly the
We all get
same
them.
from 20 different people at 10 different companies, all sending you exactly the same words.
Yes.
Like you said, it's removing the humanity and the human connection from this. And that's the problem. The problem is if it said, you are a miserable sod, why aren't you responding to my emails? You're much more likely to respond and say, yes, you caught me on a bad day, than if you send one of these pseudo personalized nonsense emails. Just circling back around to do this, just bumping this to the top of your inbox, just go away. You haven't even been bothered to write me a personalized script. And I think that the key thing here is saying to people that in a commoditized world of products and services, the only USP is who you are. And if you major on that, it gives you a massive competitive advantage. Does it mean everyone's going to want to buy from you? No, because some people will say, I don't like bald people, in which case we're both in trouble.
And how dare they, by the way?
And how dare they, by the way? Yeah, so you can't legislate for that. But, I often think to myself, the beauty of this is that if you understand who I am and you understand what I am, you know what you're buying. Because the danger otherwise is that we schedule a call without having any kind of interaction. We schedule a meeting without any interaction. And I drive for an hour to come to your office, to spend an hour with you, to drive an hour home for you to say, I'm not going to work with you because frankly, I don't like you, Adam. Much better that when I first reach out to you, you look at my profile and say, I'm not going to engage you in a conversation because I don't like you, because it saved me 3 hours for me to get the same result. And so much of this is about saying there are a billion people on LinkedIn. You don't want to talk to all of them. What you want to talk to is the ones that love you because they can't buy that anywhere else.
You know what, Adam? This is, by the way, it's such a great conversation. It's evolving, of course. It's always changing. But the one key message I love just for all the young people starting in professional sales is, I think, this concept about be a good version of you, by the way. Be the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adam, of course, was joking when he said you're a nasty sod, but be the best version of you, but be you. And I think what happens a lot in professional sales is, and certainly it happened for me in the beginning, because I was living this sort of party lifestyle and I thought it was kind of a mess and out late nights and drinking and carousing and doing all this crazy stuff as a young person. Then I put on my suit. Back in those days, you wore a suit more frequently. And I had this veneer, right? And the veneer was, I'm not letting you into that craziness, but I'm going to act perfect and that I'm pleasant and positive and all those kinds of things. But it wasn't my authentic self. And so, and they can sense it, right? There's no real close connection. People say, you're really formal. They literally would say that to me. And if you follow anything I do now, I've got the maturity level of a 12-year-old. And, I'm pretty good at sales training, but I'm not formal. It's just this way.
And people, I think, have developed beyond expecting, a starched collar and a suit. But it's interesting because the whole authenticity thing, it's like I genuinely believe that turning the things that you perceive as a negative into a positive is a really important behavior to have. So when I'm coaching a young person, the challenge that they have is that it may be their first proper sales role. They've been in biz dev or cold calling or whatever, and they've moved into a proper sales role and they're going and meeting customers, and they're young, they're in their early mid-20s, and they're facing off against someone who's in their 50s. And it's like, well, I'm not really credible, am I? Because I'm young. And then they make up all of this stuff about how, well, I've got experience of this and I've got experience. Actually, you haven't. It's like when a 20-year-old says to you, in my experience, Mark, you should do such and such. You say, what experience? You're a kid.
Right.
So I often think that you should turn it on its head, because for somebody like you, if a 20-year-old says, to be frank, you will be my first major win. And as my first client, I will go above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that you're happy. How attractive and beguiling is that to hear as a buyer?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so you can't hide the fact you're young. What you can do is you can say, and therein lies, I've got boundless energy. You are not one of 1,000, you're one of one at the moment. So I want to
Yes.
make sure that you become my case study for success. Great. Well, I know that that person is going to really go the extra yards to make me a success in a way that this person who's too interested in going on President's Club won't.
We'll leave it there for today, and we could be talking for hours about this, and we will again. But what a great conversation today, and clearly the first time we've ever used the word beguiling on the Selling Well podcast. So we've taken it up a level in terms of class, dignity. This is the British coming through. So thank you for that. So first of all, thank you so much for joining the Selling Well podcast.
Thank you very
today.
much.
How do people learn more about Adam or DLA Ignite?
Well, they can connect to me on LinkedIn. So if you search for Adam Gray, Adam Gray social media or something like that, or if you want to type it in, you go linkedin.com/in/Adam Gray, Gray, and that's my URL. Or you could buy a copy of one of my books. So Tim wrote that book. I wrote. Yes, so I wrote this, which was the first globally published book on social selling. Probably a little bit old hat now, but it's
fantastic. What a
it's
cover!
Great. It's great for wobbly tables. And I wrote this book with Tim.
Marketing.
Actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
And those outline the thinking that we have as an organization and the kind of challenges that we help other organizations overcome. And I would stress for anyone to connect to me on LinkedIn, preferably, but if not, follow me and subscribe to my newsletter when I'm serializing a lot of our thinking, so that. But we have a partner in Singapore, and his headline used to say on his LinkedIn profile, and this is one of the best lines ever. He said, "Knowing but not doing is folly." And I think that that's particularly pertinent, because the irony is that all of the stuff that we talk about it's not a moon landing for anybody. Everybody knows they need to do this. Everybody knows how to do this. Anyone that's been able to have any kind of relationship with another human being understands how to network and build rapport and relationships.
Yes.
What they don't do is they don't do it. They're looking for shortcuts, and that's where they fall over. And recognizing that social is a platform to enable you to scale the intimacy of those one-to-one conversations is where the win lies.
Amazing counsel. What a great conversation, Adam. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam's,
Lovely to see you.
It's great to see you. Adam's books will be in the show notes, as will Adam's link to his LinkedIn profile team. Clearly, you're going to want to have a conversation with Adam, just like I did today. And I'm going to tell everybody, I've read these books and I'm applying these strategies provided by DLA Ignite. I've learned a lot. This is why I love the podcast so much. And it works. It absolutely works. And I have these great conversations with people, networking chats, and they're all amazing. And sometimes they turn into an opportunity and sometimes they don't. But the reality is, for what we do, if someone's a chief revenue officer today, it may not be today they need us, might be 8 months from now, 12 months from now, but eventually they need us. And we're front of mind when we have that personal connection. So I'd like to thank Adam so much for joining us today and giving us some great insights. And team, as always, I'd like to thank you for listening to the Selling Well podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast as much as I did. And if you did, please like and subscribe to the Selling Well podcast, because that's actually exactly how we get great guests like Adam to join us. So thank you for doing so. We're also growth oriented over here, as you know. So if you have some ideas as to how we can make this podcast more effective for you, so that you can apply the strategies and the ideas to what you do every day, please let us know. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn or even email me at my personal email, markcox@inthefunnel.com, markcox@inthefunnel.com. That's my personal email that comes to me, and I respond to every bit of constructive criticism we get, and we love constructive criticism. So keep your ideas coming, and thank you for that. We'll see everybody next time on the Selling Well podcast.